All right. Hello and welcome to episode number 205 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast. We're recording on May the 28th, 2023. My name is Eric, host of the show, based in Southern Ontario, hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, and computer geek. As a first responder, witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events and started a small preparedness company to help people get better prepared for at least 72 hours, if not longer. Gavin.
Yes, I'm Gavin. I'm an instructor with Ragnarok Tactical, volunteer, search and rescue, first responder, all around fun, cool guy, and a podcaster too, I guess. I do this one occasionally. Yeah, the other CPP as well, more frequently.
And I'm Brad. I'm in Eastern Ontario, part-time amateur prepper, constantly trying to better myself.
My name is Pierre. I'm a wannabe prepper, tactical beard owner, base t-shirt, merchants, government critique, and the reason we need to hit the explicit button most of the time.
This is true.
I will concur.
Indeed. I'm the Frugal Gunny. Recently moved to Northern Ontario, pretty much in the middle of nowhere. I live off the grid. I'm a shooter, hunter, fisher, gatherer, trapper type, basically a generalist. It's only recently that I came to accept the name Prepper.
And now here you are.
Welcome you to the game.
Yeah.
Yep. Just like
I don't like it really either. It makes me feel kind of dirty. Like, why does this have to be its own thing? Why can't this just be normal life? Like,
so well said.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting it's not normal life?
Well, I mean, everyone should not depend on others and should be able to supply for themselves. But I don't know, I always just find that because of too many weird TV shows and maybe other YouTubers that have this weird fascination with doomsday events that are 1 in 10 million, people focus on those people. Yep. And it's I've got to have this insane setup for when solar flares come and you're like, yeah, but what about when there's a snowstorm that lasts for 4 or 5 days and you can't get to the grocery store? They're all ready for the big solar wave thing that's gonna knock out all their cell phones and stuff. But snowstorm that's gonna probably happen every few years, nah, forget it.
Yeah,
I don't worry about that.
Yeah. No.
Do I have a podcast for you, buddy?
Yeah.
Oh, rocked an awesome start.
This is great.
So anybody out there, if you're wanting to keep this show on the air, buy some swag. We have both the Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt and the tactical Velcro patch at www.prepperpodcast.ca. All proceeds help keep the lights on and the backup generator fueled.
If you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes, like us on Facebook, and submit a review on iTunes. Also, we want your feedback, good or bad, or just a topic you want us to cover. You can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
Not bad this week. You've been practicing.
Nice.
Yes.
All right, so we've got some mindful content for you in this episode. We're going to start off with some recent news articles. We'll update you on our personal preparedness. Then we're going to get into the main topic for the evening of mindset. So let's move into the news. So I got an email the other day from Jace Medical. I figured this would be a good spot in the news to include this. They are now, this is their big announcement they were talking about when they were on with us a couple episodes ago. They are now offering backup prescriptions. So if you already have some form of medication that you're taking and you're concerned about having enough supply, they are actually issuing a year worth of supply for you. So that was the thing that they were saving up to announce, and they just recently announced it. So things such as cholesterol pills, diabetes, family planning, heart health, blood pressure, mental health type of medications, they are now offering that in a year's supply. You do already have to be diagnosed and be under the care of a primary care physician, but then they will prescribe it for you as well. So you get that year supply to stack away. So
that is fantastic for when the sun flares hit.
Yeah. It is, or the snowstorms.
Really
covers everybody.
That we don't really not that one. No.
The snowstorm won't happen. Yeah.
No.
Oh, right. What was I thinking? Right.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing me back to reality, guys. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Pay no attention to a
Eric.
few months ago when some of the panelists here were snowed in for like, a day or two.
Yeah.
But that won't happen.
Oh man. No, of
No.
course not. And I put a link in the chat here if anybody's looking to check out that Jay's medical stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder what all they cover. Like,
Yeah.
is it just those things you listed, or more?
It's almost
be-
like we're gonna have to have them on again.
Almost.
I mean, if nothing else, I mean, that's just super convenient, only having to like do that once a year rather than, every month or couple of
All
months or
time.
whatever that your regular doctor will give you prescriptions for. As a person that
Yeah,
needs to
well-
take some of those things frequently, it's just like, I gotta go
Yep.
do this again.
Yep.
I'm on the list of a few of those as well, and it,
Yeah.
even just to have the peace of mind of having it for a year stocked away, and then continuing with your regular prescription with your primary care
Yep.
physician.
And
Yeah.
should
Yeah.
that snowstorm hit or that power outage happen or something, you can't get to the
I-
pharmacy.
I
Hey.
thought we agreed that solar flares are the only thing that could
Oh,
happen.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
my mistake. Solar flare.
Yeah.
If that
Yeah.
happens and it screws up the electrical conduits to get
Yeah.
the medication to the pharmacy, and
Yeah.
you at least have that backup, and then you can just replace it.
Yeah.
Right.
Or zombies. Yeah. Zombies. Yeah.
True.
Shit, I forgot.
They need their cholesterol meds too.
Oh, don't forget Yellowstone Park.
Jeez. Oh boy. All right, let's move on to what we've done lately for preps, shall we? That's you, Brad.
Work.
Mhm.
Yard cleanup outside continues. Did a bunch of that today. I didn't really do this. Wasn't for preps, but it kept me from doing more preps. Was Pierre's wedding over last weekend?
Oh,
Partying
yes.
and camping and doing the wedding thing, and many steps in there. Did some more work. Fuel rotation. Because of his wedding, I was able to bring my camper out for the first time for the year.
Nice.
Not at all stocked in what I would like to have in there. Kind of a little bit rushed to get it out of here and then back. And because thankfully we didn't go very far, or there was no solar flare. Good thing.
Yeah.
And
But I
then
mean,
some more work.
That's kind of like a prep. Like you didn't actually, you didn't stockpile anything, but you tested its,
Yes.
abilities and
Yes.
got it ready for the season. That's like a prep.
Yep.
I got you.
Verified it
Don't worry,
works.
I got you. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. All right. Yeah, for myself, it's been a bit of a whirlwind the last few weeks. I'm new to the podcast now. I haven't been here in like 3 weeks, but
Hey, Eric, welcome to the podcast.
hey,
Good to-
thanks.
Good to have you.
Yeah, so I've been all over the place for work. It did open up the ability to do all the things we talk about when traveling. So check out a bunch of different hotels and entries and exit points, and kind of figure out the lay of the land and all that kind of fun stuff when traveling. Beyond that, was also able to just make sure that my go bag was around with me, and I did pull a couple of things out here and there as I went, because I realized I need some snacks every once in a while, so that was kind of nice to have. And then beyond that, just rebuilt a raised garden bed, because the one that we had here was about 10 years old. It was falling apart, and it was time to build something new. So got that done actually today, so just in time to add it to the list of things. But now it's time to plant a few things. And yes, I know a few people are screaming at their computers or their phones or whatever they're listening to this on, going, "You are late, you're behind on planting." Yeah, I know, I'm aware. I'm going to cheat this year and just get some plants that are already sprouted from Home Depot and put them in. And yes, curse and swear at me all you want, but it's the way we're going to go this time.
It still
Next year, I'll
counts
start
as
from
growing.
seeds. I will.
Yeah.
I'll start with seeds next year. I usually do, so I can cheat this year, I think.
There you go. As Brad alluded to, we had our wedding party to celebrate, so we had to set up the venue and tear it down, which we finally got everything out yesterday. We did most of the cooking and most of the stuff, so I mean, we cooked for, I would say, 40 to 50 people
Yeah,
on a
something like
Saturday. So yeah, we had a good setup, lots and lots of friends. Very thankful everybody was there helping out, helping chop some veggies and doing this and doing that. So that was fun. I love cooking, but I will never do it for a living. But got to hang out with a bunch of people for the weekend. It was good. Got to meet one of the panelists from the Alberta area that came down for that weekend. So that was good to get to sit down more than, so
Awesome.
we got to talk on the podcast or the occasional
Mhm.
messages back and forth. It was nice to see everybody come out and the support from everybody. So in a small way, people are okay, depending on the people.
certain people are okay. Yeah.
That's my takeaway.
Basically, the
Awesome.
people on this podcast are okay because
It's good to scope it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, on my end, I attended Pierre's wedding, so I got to do a little bit of impromptu camping. Impromptu because I did very little preparation for the camping other than looking in the truck. Yeah, did I throw the tent in? Do I have the sleeping bags? Yeah, air mattress. Oh, I did make sure the air mattress functioned. But one thing that happened is I was missing my pegs out of the tent. So I had to make a quick decision. Do I try to fashion some pegs? No, I went digging through the old truck, and what did I find? 4 packs of those dollar store, about 10-inch long tent pegs, those cheap metal ones. Well, they saved the day, and the tent stood through the rain, and that was good. So little prepping items saved me there. Swapped in my summer tires, so all the off-road is off because I'm going to be doing a little bit of road this year. Been actively looking for the next work gig, if that's a prep. I think it is. And last but not least, went to visit a friend's property. Picked it up not far from here in the National Capital Region where my girlfriend lives. So I went to go visit that, give him an idea of what my thoughts were. Very nice little property. So I'll probably be spending some time up there and developing some content, some video content for everybody from there as well. So that should be a lot of fun.
Like OnlyFans or the YouTube one?
The YouTube kind. If I had to rely on OnlyFans, man, I really missed the mark, didn't I?
Well, you're just saying you're looking for a new work gig. You're gonna start making
Oh,
some
man.
content.
Some would refer to OnlyFans
yeah.
as a gig.
Nothing says that it has to be feet pics. It could be preparedness stuff on there. I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
The fresh
Oh,
crack
yeah.
of new tent pegs. The package
Yeah.
opening. Yeah.
Preparedness and feet.
Freshly charged headlamp.
That's
Yep.
that's a niche market, but I feel that would be huge. Yeah,
You could charge top dollar for a niche market.
yeah, it's
Indeed,
true.
indeed. All right, you're giving me some ideas, fellas. I like this.
All right. Well, how about with that, we move into the main topic, shall we?
Definitely.
Awesome. So this evening, we're looking at talking about mindset and just how that helps you with preparedness and kind of gets you into, well, for lack of a better term, the mindset to actually do this kind of stuff, right? It's an important topic. It's something that I think a lot of people overlook. They don't really think about it. They'll get into it, but they just don't realize that it's something that they're doing, and they're actually getting themselves set up to do something, or they're getting their mindset to, for a different project or something that they're looking to take on, and just getting themselves mentally set to get into this preparedness world or continue into it. So I think it's a good topic to get into.
I have to agree 100%. I talk a lot about mindset with the mags that I'm a member of, because even if one doesn't have much money or gear, if one has the mindset, you can accomplish just about anything, right?
Mhm.
And
It's true.
That's why I'm a big fan of it. And if anybody says, "Oh, well, prove it," I'm proof of it. I have no formal schooling in IT, and yet I've been a leading IT instructor for, way too long now. 27 years I've been trying to lead people through how to work with technology in the smart and best way.
It's a few years.
It's a couple of years, right? I may have seen a thing or two, but what I found is, like a lot of you in your own experiences, people have a really high reliance on technology and gear and hardware. And then when that gear or hardware fails, or that service fails, because most people today, if they're watching this video or listening to this podcast, you are reliant on an entire chain of services and technology to provide you with that service and that outcome. When you turn off that switch, when that car breaks down, when you're on a highway, when the power lines get knocked out because of a bad windstorm like we recently had here, all those things happen, right? But when those things go away, it is your mind that panics and that makes you unable to cope. Whereas we have plenty of examples of people who live without these things and they do just fine. In fact, they thrive, don't they?
No, I agree. Like, I mean, in all of the things that I do, like my daily life and just dealing with, whatever stupid little things are bugging me. And, I've had some medical things here and there over the years, like everyone else, the competitive shooting stuff that I do, doing, search and rescue and stuff like that. Like, mindset is everything. It's like fitness. If you have the right mindset, it just makes everything better and easier, right? Like, just like the more in shape you are, everything gets better. And,
so glad you mentioned the fitness part. For those of you listening in, we're in Canada. I don't know about other countries, but in Canada, we used to take athletics quite seriously, to the degree that all of our Olympic athletes received a lot of mental coaching and seriously tuned to getting the most performance out of people. And that includes being self-aware and knowing what's going on between both ears, and optimizing that so that you get the most out of yourself. And every really serious athlete I have listened to or watched, all talk about the mental game more than anything. When I was a younger fella, I was very much into mountain bike racing. And there comes a point when you have been going for hours or really intensely for an hour on that thing, and your body has already cooked all of the sugar and carbs you've got in the body by then, and now you're working on your reserves. Your tank is empty. And everybody hits this point. Everybody does. You can't not hit it. What makes one athlete better than another at that point is the mental game. Yes, you have variations.
There's a great book.
Physical.
Yeah, a great book by Lanny Bassam, With Winning in Mind, where it talks all about that mental prep to get you there. Like, it's huge, and it's applicable to not just any one sporting thing, or it's applicable to everything in life. Like the more hippie type people might call it manifesting and things like that. It's the same thing. It's having that positive mental attitude, that picture, that thing that you want to happen, in your mind, because your brain is unable to separate from the actual doing it and of you thinking it. Right. So it becomes that repetitive thing. It's like building muscle memory, but it's all in your brain, and your brain then starts to envision success, which then creates success.
Absolutely. All these things help in what I consider the biggest part of prepping, which is the planning phase. And if anybody wants to start working on their planning skills, you can start by looking at planning from a lot of the old school military ways of planning things, where to look at the outcome of the mission first, including the follow-up actions after the mission, and then plan backwards from there. So if you want to try a really cool exercise, do that in your head. Okay, this is a little project I want to take on. Visualize the outcome in all of its ways that are measurable and tangible, that you could report to somebody else and say, here's what I accomplished. And then work your way back from that. Okay, what are the steps I need to get to that point? And then think of all the dependencies between those steps. What must you do before the other can begin, et cetera, et cetera. And now you're down the road of planning, which is a basic project management skill. And now you can apply that everywhere in life, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, when we teach a lot of things, we use the old military acronym METTC. So that'll help you plan things to give you that mindset. So for those that don't know what it is, it's mission, enemy, terrain, troops, time, and civilian considerations. So those are the kind of things, and some of those don't apply to civilians per se. We don't necessarily have troops, but you do have, from a prepper perspective, your mag, your friends, your family, your neighbors, right? Those are the people that are on your team that you can rely on to one degree or another. The enemy isn't necessarily like an actual enemy. It could be the thing that you're dealing with, right? The anything, right? You can use that to sort of give you the steps in order to plan the thing. And when you do plan the thing, you can plan for the Murphy's Law stuff that inevitably happens. But the more you think about those things and consider those things, either less realistic they are, like snowstorms, they're never going to happen, only solar flares. And then you can sort of plan around them and come up with a reasonable plan. And as you work through that mental exercise, if that bad thing happens, because you've already worked through it mentally several times, it's not as bad, right? Because nothing is ever as bad as when it happens in your mind. It's always 10 times worse than when it's actually physically happening.
Nope.
This is so true. And this is why in the world of, in the world of law enforcement, in the world of military, in the world of government, in the world of first responding, we do exercises. We practice it. We try to make it as realistic as we can so that we create all of the same stressors that are present during the actual thing, so that when the actual thing happens for us, it's indistinguishable. It's more of a faint memory. And you go, oh, okay, I remember going through something like this. And your actions become automated. It's that muscle memory, but for the mind. And I see down here that Melissa has got a great comment about breathing and hippy dippy stuff. And you know what? I want to give a nod to that, a serious nod to it. A lot of the mind work and mindset stuff that we have today stems from what were actually secret projects back in the 60s and 70s. They were classified, and they've since been declassified. And so we now know that there is actually a major benefit to doing the mental work, along with breathing and meditation and visualization. These are all major aspects of mindset. And so Melissa mentioned breathing techniques. Breathing techniques are something I encourage everybody to try. There is something absolutely great about different kinds of breathing techniques. I don't want to get into a whole other spinoff here, and nor do I really want to get into the hippie trippy kind of experience.
Never happens on this podcast. We never spin off into anything else.
Yeah, no.
But the breathing, if all you do is go watch law enforcement officers on video responding to emergency situations, they are actually trained like our military are. When you're getting into that adrenaline hit, when that adrenaline dump happens and you start getting the shakes and you feel a little bit queasy, that's the adrenaline dump. All you got to do is breathe through it, right? You center yourself in the moment and away you go. Any meditation you do will help you do that too. And if you think that, oh, that's hokey pokey, I want to talk a little bit about some of the oldest warrior civilizations out there, and those are the Japanese and the Chinese. And some of those older traditions said that a true warrior is able to stop and meditate in the middle of battle. In the middle of battle. And that is a high standard to look at. But I say, why not? If the mind is a muscle and you want to work it, you have to stress it and challenge it, just like our own muscles, right? Why not aim that high?
Well, and if you look at, I agree. Like, some of it can sound sort of really hippie and all of this stuff because it has that application as well. But it's 100% the same techniques. It's all about just lowering that heart rate, getting that adrenaline dump to sort of calm. Of current hippies, it doesn't get much more hippie than my man Wim Hof, right? And his weird cold showers and meditating and his super weird like hyperventilating breathing. But it works. Like, there is a reason why the military sends their special forces guys to train with this weird old hippie in like the mountains of Poland and go like hiking up a mountain in silkies and nothing else, right? Like, because it
Yep.
works. Like
It does.
it sounds insane, but it works, and a lot of it is purely the mental aspect of it. If like whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. Like, and that's
Yes.
part of the problem for people is they convince themselves, I can't do this, even though they have never tried it. You're like, okay,
Right.
like you're right then.
I want to pick up on that, Gavin, because that's a major one that I try to break in people that I care for, that I care about. I try and point that out in them so that they become aware. And let's talk a little bit about that. This is pure psychology, and it's definitely mindset. The words we speak have truth and are truth. And so, like Gavin says, if you say that you cannot do something, well, you have just limited yourself before even taking a step. When I was a young lad at the age of 17 with really skinny upper body, they told me, you're going to scale that 10-foot wall. And I remember thinking, all right, where's the step ladder? Right? I remember thinking that for a half second. Where's the step ladder? And then click, click, click. The gears went, oh, okay, we got to think about this, right? That was a mindset problem. If you had told me before basic training that I would be able to scale a 10-foot wall, I probably would have laughed at you. But now that I have actually done it, I can tell you, yep, and I think I know what I would have to do it again. Because I've now done it a few times thanks to that basic training. And so I want to encourage everybody to not limit yourself with your thoughts and your deeds and words. So I will often say, I don't know how to do that yet.
Yeah, that's the like. I may not be
Yeah.
able to do that
I like that.
now. I might need to
Mhm.
learn how to do this better or properly, or so that I don't hurt myself. Like, yeah, like if I went to go try to do that right now, I probably would not get over the wall, but I'd try it and I'd learn from it.
Yes. And that's the
I
process.
like that. I like the I don't know how to do this yet.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
Keyword there.
Like-
Yet.
Yes.
Yep.
Like I'm sure.
And to add to that, let's also avoid absolutes if we can.
Yeah.
On my YouTube
not
channel,
a good vodka.
Yeah.
I tend to agree. Having
avoid
tried
that
it.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, Stoli is appropriate. That's
Yeah.
a good vodka. But on the topic of limiting oneself with the mind, we can also and the positivity nerds are going to love this. So brace yourselves here. When you use the word yet, you're also creating the potential, opening that up for the actual learning experience. And again, if we want to get hippy trippy, they say when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Well, that's been my life. That has been my life. And I'll give you an example. One day I purchased a really, really snazzy handgun, a beautiful piece. I'll even tell you what it was. It was a SIG P226 Legion in 9mm. A phenomenal firearm, hyper reliable. And I came to a painful place of understanding that I couldn't shoot it worth beans compared to my other handguns. I now know, after a lot of training and an instructor drilling me into it, that I was able to overcome a lot of those issues, but it never was natural. And here's why: it was ergonomics. Sometimes your body is the limiting factor, and so I had to learn to adapt and work with it as the way anybody would if it was their issued service pistol. Oh, so your hands don't fit it. Well, isn't that tough? Don't worry, you still have to hit the target, right?
Yeah.
And so you work with it with your mind, right? You overcome it by using your mind.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and this is the way it worked out that day, I was doing terribly. I was frustrated. I couldn't figure out why I wasn't working. And the fella just a few feet back, who was organizing his targets, who was coming to shoot that day, happened to be an IPSC Grandmaster.
Huh.
And I looked at him, and he kind of said hello, just a nod, and I said hi. And for those of you who don't know about the world of handgunning, IPSC is the International Practical Shooting Confederation.
which is
And,
anything but practical anymore.
which is anything but practical. It's more like handgunning. A handgunning sport is what I
Yeah.
probably should describe it as.
Yeah.
But I remember at the time him giving me a few tips in a matter of about 10-15 minutes. I think he took pity on me because it was obvious I was doing terribly with the thing, and I was frustrated with myself, and I was honest with him. I told him I suck. What am I doing wrong? And man, he tuned me up really fast with a couple of pointers, and it changed the entire game. But until I was ready to admit, okay, I suck at this, and drop my ego. And again, all of the psychology nerds are going to love this, right? When I was able to drop my ego and approach him in a friendly way, establish a connection, eye contact, shake hands, hey, how you doing? Man, I am sucking so badly at this. Do you know what I'm doing wrong? Well, all of a sudden he tells me, well, actually, I can help you. I'm actually a black badge instructor. And let me go take a look at what you're doing. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's a great example of when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And that's an example of being ready.
I like that. And it's a good example too when you say drop the ego, because a lot of people will just get so hung up on, I know how to do this. I don't need anyone else. I've read all the books. I've watched all the YouTube.
Forget what they see what they show in the movies. Here's a guy who knows how to do it. Listen to this guy.
Yeah.
Instead of
ego is,
you know what? I've done this once. It didn't go that great.
Yeah.
Maybe
Nobody likes
that's done it a million times, right?
Nobody likes
There's
a
no harm
guy
in that.
with an ego, right? Like
everyone
needs a little bit, right? Like you need to have
absolutely
confidence in yourself, right? Like you need to take the
100%.
Peterson, like keep your back straight like a lobster thing, right? Like you got to have that confidence in yourself and all of that, because that's certainly part of that positive mental attitude. But like nobody likes a cocky jackass, right? Like ego is the one thing that is going to just kill you more than, like, no one will like you, nobody will help you. The minute that you drop that ego and stay humble, even if you know you're good at something and you're humble about it, people will love you.
100%.
Yes, and on that note, if you don't know, if you're listening to this and it sounds really fancy, oh gosh, what is ego? If you have ever experienced stage fright, that's your ego crying out in fear, afraid to be ashamed, afraid to be ridiculed. That's the ego screaming out. And there is no other way to vanquish it but to get up there and do it.
Face the fear, head on.
Face the fear. Yeah, you can try and play mind tricks with yourself to face the fear, because that works. And so, they've said in the past, oh, if you're afraid when you get up there, just imagine everybody's naked. I'm not sure that's something I want to try.
What I do every episode. Hopefully, inside voice. Oh no.
So that's why pants are optional.
You guys are wearing pants?
But yeah, I mean, that's what, like, if you read Rory Miller's books, he talks about, I mean, that's all from a sort of a confrontational thing, but he's big on like this dropping that ego to stay out of confrontation, right? Because that's what does it. But he talks about like your lizard brain and your monkey brain, and that's that monkey brain. It's that emotional one, right? Your monkey brain just wants to fit in and get along with everybody and do the things and all that, but like every now and again it freaks out, right? Because you've challenged your ego and you start, you have to beat your chest and do all of these stupid like monkey games in order to assert your dominance, right? When it's stupid. Like, who cares? Like, and that's why like a lot of guys you'll see, like when there are confrontations and stuff like that, it's a couple of drunks at a bar that punch each other up. Like, it's not that people don't get hurt, and some really hurt. It's not designed for that. It's literally like when you see two animals in nature and they're both males, locking horns. It's a display of dominance. That's all that is. And they're doing it for ego. I mean, in the animal kingdom, there's mating rights that go along with that. But like for people, like that's not really how that goes anymore. We've dropped that. It's all ego that's getting you to do that. And the minute that you get rid of it, you'll be so much better off.
Yeah, and I prefer the ritual of, if you're going to do that and try and assert dominance, it's a lot easier and less painful if you just pee on the person. compared to like going fisticuffs.
There are many
Oh,
strategies
boy.
for survival. Peter.
Yeah.
Where do I even go with this one?
Yeah.
We're gonna keep that for our OnlyFans page, Pierre.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah.
One of the things that I talk a lot about mindset about is, okay, well, how do we? So now that we've acknowledged how important it is, we understand how important it is. How do we go about in building it up? And there's all kinds of things you can do, even if you're the solo practitioner. I don't like to say the lone wolf, but there are solo practitioners out there, and I tend to be okay at that part because when you push yourself and you go and leave civilization for more than 3 or 4 days, the challenge is more mental than anything else.
yeah.
Definitely agree with that one.
It really is. And if you're a city person, I don't think of myself as a city person for a long time now, but if you're a city person, just leaving the city is going to be a challenge. Never mind staying overnight or
Yeah.
2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
If you're the kind of person that needs a light on at night or white noise at night, you might want to work in little bits on this thing. And so in that respect, with all of the things that you can do to build up on your mindset, I want to offer you all an approach that is universal and works for everybody. And it's the crawl, walk, run approach. And you'll hear this referred to by anybody in the training business, anybody from the military world, because that's how they teach us. And this approach is to actually do it. So you can't just talk about crawling. You have to actually do it. And it's by crawling that you build up the calluses on the elbows and on your knees, and you get a few little rocks in your hands, and you build up that muscle memory. Okay, that's how I move when I'm doing that, and I get a few cuts in my hands, and okay, that hurts, and you get smarter, and you start realizing if I'm going to crawl somewhere, I need to be mindful of my surfaces, and okay, and next thing you know, it's time to walk, right? And that involves a higher level of coordination and mastery of a new force called gravity. All right. Okay. So now we're incorporating another level of complexity into the activity. And over time, as we build speed, that is competency. When you start reaching speed, it's because you are competent enough that you understand and have mastered all of the aspects of the thing to do it in an effective manner. Then you can start breaking into the run. And at that point, you're kind of at the optimal performance level for that activity in terms of speed, and you can really push the full end of it and become a sprinter. But if you can run, you're now at a level of, okay, you're doing pretty well with that. And in any mental skill, you can use this approach. And so if you're new to this self-improvement thing, okay, get started gently, right? Maybe go watch a Jordan Peterson YouTube motivational video, right?
Everything is baby steps, right? Like you got to just do it, got to practice it, right? And like a physical skill, like hard skills, soft skills are the same. You have to practice it. You got to practice that positive mental attitude, practice that picturing things being perfect for it to sink in. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. But yeah, you just got to do it and stick to it. That's the trick. It's that commitment. Like at the wedding, I think I told the story of how I got the wicked burn on my arm. And so like I had, 2 weeks in the hospital. It sucked. Like it sucked bad. But like, they come in and they do like your mental health assessments and stuff like that. And they ask you the same questions over and over and over again, like to the point where you're like, oh my God, like just stop with this. This is worse than the burn itself. But like, they came in and like even on day one, they're like, you seem really okay with everything that you happened to you, right? Like you have like a massive burn on your arm, and I'm like, well, like I'm not okay with it. Like it sucks. Like it hurts. I now have to recover, and like it's a possibility that like I may not, right? Like not 100% anyways, but like if I have a bad attitude about it, it's not going to make it better. It's just going to make this time worse.
And it's not like you can go back and change it.
Yeah, exactly. Like what's done is done. And as much as I want to change it or whatever, it's not going to happen. It's just I have to just
Oh
deal
wait,
with
hang
it.
on. I'll let you borrow my Wayback Machine.
Yeah, sweet. If I was going to use it, I would use it for something way better than that. Like if it's like,
Oh, hell
if
yeah.
it's making millions, billions of dollars, yeah. But you know, if that happens to go away at the same time, I won't complain.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all it's that mental attitude where it's just like I've accepted the bad thing. Like, you know,
Yeah.
there's another great book called Embrace the Suck, where it's about the military guys, and like you got to learn to start becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? And
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
great way to practice this skill, is to just like, you know, to bring it back to my man Wim Hof again, like take that cold shower. You know it's going to suck.
Yeah.
It's going to suck real bad, especially if you've got real cold water or if you do like the proper ice bath. It's not fun. But that mental fortitude that you get from doing that is huge, and that's going to help contribute to that mental attitude for everything else, right? Like it sounds stupid, it's just like it's a cold shower, but it trains your brain to get over that. Like, you know, it's going to suck, you're doing it anyways, you're going to do it for not just like 3 seconds, for like, you know, you build up time. There's other benefits too, but like the mental fortitude thing is huge, and that's
And if I may link the mental and the physical, because the physical happens from the mental, right? You decide to do something and then you do it. So the more you practice that mental, the more the physical follows. And I want to give you an example, another practical example. And this is me, and I've got video to prove it. I just haven't posted it yet because I was kind of skinny back then. So here's the example.
Keeping that for the OnlyFans, smart man.
Yeah, that'll be the.
well, he just
the
doesn't want
pay-
people to know he's fat now.
That'll be when I open up the Patreon page.
Oh man.
So here's a great example. I had just started working out again back in 2016, and so I'd been doing crunches and some chin ups and pull ups and isometrics, and a friend of mine's young lad tells me one day, "Oh, do you know how to do an elbow plank?" And I looked at him with eyes as big as saucers. What's an elbow plank? I'd never heard of this thing in my life. So he goes ahead and whips out a little yoga mat, slaps it on the floor, and he shows me an elbow plank. And I remember thinking, well, you know what? I don't know if I can do one of those. Let me try.
Yeah.
And I had already had 1 or 2 beers into me. I was at a friend's house for their dinner. We were just having dinner. And here I am on a yoga mat trying to
Liquid
do
Courage.
an elbow plank.
Yeah.
Thanks to Liquid Courage, probably, and no huge part.
Yeah.
Well, I whipped off a 1 minute and 55 time, and he said, "That's really good for a guy who's never done this before." And I remember thinking, "Oh, I was pretty proud of myself, right?" And so a couple of weeks later, I'm doing 2-minute planks, and I'm quite happy with what I'm doing. I'm very pleased, and the results are showing. And I'm walking with a friend, and she reveals to me that Cher was bragging once that she could do 5-minute planks. Well, didn't that just
Wow.
crush my little man ego? It really did. And I remember looking at her thinking, and I literally said this. I said, well, you know what? If Cher at the age of 70 or late 60s can pull off a 5-minute plank, I'm pretty sure I can do that too. And you know what? I worked my way up to it. And what did it take? Probably about 3 weeks. And at this point, I was doing my planking regime every 2 days or so. And it took about 2-3 weeks to work up to that time. And it was a lot easier than I thought. Way easier than I thought. And I was already in my early 40s at this point. And so I remember thinking, well, if I can do that, what can't I do?
Yeah.
And so if I can do that at the age of 42 and record a 5.5-minute plank on video to the soundtrack of AC/DC's Whole Lotta Rosie,
Nice.
anybody younger than me should be able to get to that too, no matter what physical condition they are in, right? Because it's a mental thing. It's a mental thing. You're in pain. You're in the middle of adversity. You're shaking. You're sweating. You're vibrating. You're breathing hard. Your head's popping because your veins are bulging. but you know what? It feels
But you're
good.
exercising, right?
You're exercising the mind as well as the body while you're doing this,
That's a good point.
right? So that's what it was for me. It was a mental game. And it was, again, it wasn't that, oh, can I get to 5 minutes? No, it was, well, if she was able to do it, and she is as old as the earth, from my point of view, then why can't I? Right. And so it was entirely a mind barrier that I had to remove. And then I just had to go ahead and have the courage to execute it. That's it.
Yeah, and that's what it is. You just gotta try. You have to,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, I know Yoda's got the like, do or do not. There is no try, but like, there's no absolutes in this. Like, you just have to give it your best shot and go from there. Like, lose the ego, be humbled by an experience or two, and keep at it. That perseverance is huge for that mindset, right? Because like, if you stop doing something every time you failed at it, none of us would be doing any of the things that we did. Right, like
We
You
wouldn't
can't
have
do
gone
that.
to the moon. We wouldn't have gone to the bottom of the ocean.
exactly.
Precisely. Human feats don't happen without the mental aspect behind it, right?
Yeah, you just
And without curiosity.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Motivation. Let's talk about that.
Motivation.
Let's talk about
That would be the better word
motivation,
to use. Yeah.
because that's part of mindset. And having been involved in the training world a long time, since 1996, I've been a formal trainer. So it's an awful long time. Before that, I trained in cadets formally. So there's a lot of background for me in that side of things, and you just have to go ahead and do it. You have to jump into it feet first. There's no better way to learn it than to go ahead and do it. You can read about it, but there's nothing like doing it. That's why in-person training, all of the subject matter experts who really have a grasp of their respective domains, they will all tell you, if you want to supercharge your way through things, if you want to give yourself a really big accelerated learning curve in any one aspect of something, go get training, get some guidance, go reach out for that Yoda. Because
as a trainer, this is the thing that I find is like, because I agree, like, language is important, right? We need to use the correct language when we talk to ourselves, when we talk to other people. And a lot of people get practice and training mixed up. Practice is when you do the thing on your own and you're practicing a skill. Training is when you go and receive that training from somebody else that has a higher skill level, hopefully, than you, in order to teach you something new, or at least confirm that you have the skill and ability that you're going to their expertise for.
If we use, and I love that, if we use the analogy of the computer, and again, if you're listening to this podcast or watching this on video, you're using some sort of computer at some sort of scale. A computer is hardware and software. And the software, everybody has had an experience of bad software at some point, right? And
Don't know what you're talking about.
We don't know anything about any of that. So we want to update that software. Treat your mind and everything that's contained in it as something that's upgradable. Don't limit it by thinking that it is fixed, because it isn't. The training is one great way to boost it and get there, but you can read books. A lot of things that I learned to do, I was inspired by books, and so I celebrate literature and the ability to read. It's really important that we are not afraid to go seek out those sources. And the beautiful thing about books is when the power turns off, you still have them.
Yeah.
You
Or
still have
when,
them.
True.
they try to rewrite the internet, the written books doesn't get rewritten. It stays physical and in your hands and things like that.
Yeah.
Not to get too
Thank you.
tinfoil hatty, because that doesn't happen on this podcast, but
Oh, no.
Never, no.
But to a real practical level, one of the greatest books I have ever seen, and I'm the lucky owner of two, because I once lost it And I was so upset that I'd lost it that I went and found a copy online to purchase, and then I found the one that I had lost. So I now have a backup, and this makes me very happy, of course.
That's how it always works.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
book is
One
the
is none, yeah.
Alive. Yeah, exactly. This book is the Alive Natural Health Encyclopedia. And it is an incredible book. A lot of us who have grown up in the modern world don't really have any idea about nutrition. And if you want to optimize your mind, your ability to learn and intake new information, you know what? Nutrition is not a bad way to start, because it affects your daily life, your daily performance, your mood,
Absolutely.
your cognitive ability. Food is immensely related to all of that, and will also help you when you want to go beyond. Right? When you are under challenge, when you're under stress, good nutrition will help your nerves and all of those pathways up and down the column, the spinal column, the brain. It optimizes the flow of those signals to and from, and you just handle those stresses better. So nutrition is not a bad way to start, and understanding the connections between those things you put into your body is a good way to go, I'd say.
No, absolutely. And I mean, that's exactly like if you take the sort of, the Jocko approach of like discipline equals freedom, right? If you have the discipline to exercise regularly and eat right and do the things that you're supposed to every day, when those days that you can't get around to them happen, you're not going to be that, much worse off for not having done it. But when something bad happens or something that stresses you out happens, if you do those things, that those stressors are reduced, right? Because you're in the right physical shape, you're in the right mental shape, so that when you encounter them, it's not so bad, right? Like you can overcome them and do that. I mean, and if you look at all those great, survival movies, like the guy that cuts his arm off and all of these other things, right? Like, the plane crash survivors, they go through horrible things, but like the one thing that they all had was this great mindset, this perseverance, this will to continue on despite like ridiculous odds against them, because they just won't quit. They won't give up. So it can show you right there, like these people were faced with like some of the most horrible situations you could ever imagine. And most people would be like, oh, I could never do that. Well, you're right then. But if you think that you can, you've got a heck of a lot better shot than if you think you can't.
Yeah, for sure.
That's right. If any of you think you can't push water uphill, I need you to stop right there. All you have to do is freeze it, and then you can push it really well up that hill. So all you have to do is think and look at the problem in a different way. Right?
Yep.
And so that's where talking to somebody else, looking for somebody else's advice, wherever the source, it's really useful. When I was stuck out in the middle of the woods and running into problems, I did all of the things that one would do when they're stuck. I ended up on YouTube. I ended up Googling stuff, and I called a friend. I did all those things. And that was mindset. That's all you have to do is think of those ways, and away you go. So a few places to where I have developed my mindset and my attitude to dealing with these things is from other people that impressed me in their way of dealing with these things. And so for me, that was the world of books in a way, but also my hunting and fishing mentor taught me a lot too. Told me a lot of stories of what he ended up dealing with. And that gave me confidence that, okay, now that I know how he dealt with that, I can go ahead and do that too. And so I always am a big fan of transmitting other books that have given me that confidence. And so I've got a few selected here that I picked out, and I'd love to share with folks if you want to hear about them.
Absolutely.
I'll start with the most digestible because it's got lots of pretty pictures and not too many big words. And those are a lot of fun.
My favorite
kind of book.
It's the kind of
color
thing you
Oh,
could
you beat me
probably
to the question.
colorize the thing, man. I'm sure it would be really cool. So if you do, like, I want to see it. All right, because that'll
Sounds
Keep
be
it in
really
the lines,
awesome.
Peter. Keep it in the lines.
I'll do my best, buddy.
So this is a nod.
He's not driving.
You don't need to do that in driving. You have to do that in color.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
but if you had to do it in
That's a lot easier
driving, this book has some tips for you. I'm referring to the 101 Deadly Skills series of books by I think is it Clint Emerson? Is that his name?
I'm trying to remember. Hold on. I have that one in my library as well.
I need to double check this because I need to give this fellow it's Clint Emerson. So Clint Emerson is a former Navy SEAL, and I like what he does because and anybody who takes their combat arms experience and shares it with the civilian world so that they are better prepared, I got to give a shout out to. And so Clint Emerson is one of these folks. 101 Deadly Skills. The survival edition for those of you who are scared of anything that reeks of combat and or fighting. But for those of you who have a background in first responding or combat arms, check out the other little titles that start with 101 Deadly Skills. Some really cool stuff in there, especially for the folks out there who want more tips on MacGyver type situations and what would you do in that situation. Man, this is the book for you. For those of our friends listening in and watching from the military world, I have to recommend Colonel Grossman. He wrote a book called On Killing, and it's a really important book. And it helped me out at a time when I needed it. I was in a situation with someone very close to me where it went out of control. The situation was out of control, like completely out of control. And I had to revert to the thought of what do I do to protect the other loved ones in the room? And that was really hard on me mentally and emotionally after the fact, not during. During, it was very cold. It was very rational, very much like a lot of emergency simulations and drills we did in the military and in first aid training. But in this case, it was very personal and it shook me. And a good friend lent me the book On Killing, and it gave me deep insight into why that had affected me so deeply. And so I want to share that book for all of you from the profession of arms to please read this book.
I've done 3 of his books. So that was a good one, like the On Combat, On Killing. And then for those of you that are religious, because Grossman is very religious, the On Spiritual Combat was a really good one if you're into that. It's very Christian focused, which is not really my jam. He does write his own like Christmas hymns and stuff like that. And if you do the audio one, it's him singing them to you. But I do think that even though that's my particular flavor of religion, for those that are of that particular persuasion or just interested in general, that it does tie some really interesting things to that mindset to faith, which can help make them even more powerful.
Have to agree. For those of you who might be turned off by the whole Christian aspect, he didn't preach it terribly in the video that he posted online.
No, in his On Combat, On Killing, he doesn't. This On Spiritual Combat one is very, it sort of takes the On Combat one and adds that twist to it.
Interesting.
Which gives it a bit more of a, I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was.
It's good to address it because in the book On Killing, he talks about, so I don't want to read the book to you all because I don't have it here, but I can paraphrase some of the content that I found because it made a really big impression on me. And so he used a numbers-based approach. And what I like about a numbers-based approach is that it's a rational, non-judgmental manner to look at a set of data. And that's why big data is a big thing today. It's representative of something. It's not just plucking facts out of thin air, right? This is structured information. So he went about interviewing a whole lot of people. And in interviewing these people, he found a pattern, a deliberate pattern that came to reveal itself in survivors of absolutely horrific battles who came out of it unscathed in terms of their mental part, in terms of the psyche, in terms of mindset. They came out of it unscathed. They were real leaders, and they showed just an incredible level of performance. And what he found is that a really high proportion of them had a deep spiritual aspect to their worldview, and a deeply held one. So it cannot be denied, and it should not be denied. I just don't tend to get too denominational when I talk about this sort of stuff, because it can really turn people off. And being from the world of training, I don't care to be denominational. All I care about is the outcome for the people who are taking the training with me. Because if it's turning them off, then they're not listening in, they're not as receptive.
Right.
And again, this goes to mindset, right? And so if you want to practice how to talk with people in mindset, there was a really good course I took a long time ago at the beginning of my IT career, when I was just getting started in IT security. And the reason I liked this course is because I had this problem in IT security. Whenever I'd walk into somebody's office, they all looked really annoyed to see me. They're always like, oh, here he comes. Right. I always brought challenges and problems that were difficult. And so I was not very popular when I'd walk into somebody's office. I always had some sort of question mark for them to deal with. So I took this course called Communicating with Diplomacy and Tact, with tact and diplomacy. And I never thought it would be as useful as it has been to me. But I'll tell you briefly what that course gave me. It gave me an enhanced awareness of what all humans feel when they're talking to somebody else. And so that's entirely psychology, right? But it's helped me in dealing with people and realizing that whoever I'm talking to, even though I might not be in the right mindset, that, okay, if I'm dealing with this other person, I got to park that ego. And I got to think of the other individual that I'm speaking with, because it's an exchange. If I'm just talking to them, it's not the same thing. That's not really a two-way communication. That's just a one-way communication. If you want effective communication, two-way communication is good, because you can confirm that you're hearing and listening to the right things, right? And so if there's another aspect in life one might want to work on, is in communicating, because I don't know everything. I don't think anybody here knows everything, unless you do, and I just haven't found out about it yet. But what I have found in this entire attitude of, geez, I don't know how to do that yet. Maybe somebody will come along and show me, or maybe I'll find the right source. Well, a lot of that potentiality of using the word yet in the phrase becomes activated with people skills. And I can see that I didn't necessarily have those when I was a young lad. I was kind of brash. I was a bit of an ass, really. But over time, with maturity, with inserting foot in mouth and having to remove it once or twice, and seeing the effect it has on others, after a while, we start to learn these things. So I will not discount people skills and working on people skills as a part of mindset development. You are not an island, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, no, I mean, I for mindset, I love books, because there's a huge, like, Peterson's great.
Yep.
Like all of the Jocko books except for Final Spin, because that has nothing to do with mindset, and it's just a weird story that he wrote. Can avoid that one. You know, David Goggins is great. Jody Middick's book talks a lot about that. The guy that he did Amazing Race with, that he came in second, is also wrote a great book about perseverance, and he talks a lot about Jody in the book, and how, like, you know, you have this guy that, like, the guy that came in second was like fighting Parkinson's or something like that, like some, you know, physically debilitating disease that he's dealing with and struggling with. you know, and here he is watching Jody Minnick, who had his legs blown off in Afghanistan, and this guy is being inspired by him, right? And his level of perseverance. And it's like, dude, like yours is just as insane. Like you are going through something incredibly difficult as well. You know, like don't underrate yourself here in this at all. Like you are just as mentally focused, but like it was sort of that interesting perspective of somebody that like, here he is being inspired by somebody else that's also struggling, but in different ways, right?
I think that's a beautiful example of somebody
Yeah.
who's just parked their ego and able to
Yeah.
learn something
But just-
really valuable and deep from somebody
Yeah,
else.
all the things on communication, like Rory Miller and his books on like conflict communication resolution and talking all about that lizard brain and monkey brain and human brain to avoid what he calls the monkey dance is huge for mindset. Because if you can avoid it, and it's not just like in a fight, it's you doing dumb things over and over
Right.
again because your brain likes patterns. And if I've always done the dumb thing, if I don't do the dumb thing, that means there's something that's not right because I'm not repeating the pattern. So sometimes we need to break those patterns. Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference was also great about sort of like communications. I mean, he was a hostage negotiator, but like it's that same thing. It's that mindset going into it, knowing what you want to get out of this. You know, and he comes from that perspective and sort of applies it to the business world, but it's applicable to any communication with anyone, even yourself. I mean, the list goes on and on and on for
on
books,
the topic
but,
of
like,
business world. Here's a couple that have helped me in business immensely, and lots of other people have probably spun this one off. But Sun Tzu's Art of War.
Yeah,
Art of War has been respun by many other authors for the business world, but what I love about this book is that it has multiple layers of meaning when you're reading through these passages. And if you have even a little bit of a mind inclined to poetic license or double meanings or symbolism, and you turn that part of you on while you're reading this book, there is some serious life wisdom there for you.
A Book of Five Rings is also good.
Ooh, I don't think I've heard of
It's
that one yet.
I can't think of the guy's name off the top of my head, but he was one of those sort of like wandering samurais that was like roaming Japan after sort of the feudal era ended, getting into sword fights with people, and he was a master sword fighter and kind of wrote this book. I think he needed to check his ego a little bit, but like of all people, he probably earned it because like this guy had never lost a duel.
Wow.
Yeah.
The
So
world
Tully
of
Moose.
martial arts.
Another great one. Yeah. There's another Japanese guy, although this one is a little maybe controversial, but Sun and Steel. It was written by a guy that was very big into Japanese imperialism, and he actually, like at the end of World War II, kind of got up and like told off the troops and everything, and then like actually did the whole seppuku thing because he sort of stood by his convictions. So he's a bit of an odd one. He started out as sort of an artist, like a poet, and then went a little bit right wing, maybe a lot right wing. But his Sun and Steel book teaches you a lot of great mindset stuff and about how, you know, you need to have the discipline to go out and get your sunshine, get your exercise in, and it'll turn you into, you know. So that's the Sun and the Steel is by swinging around like weights and stuff. But it was a great book on that subject. Just don't look at the other stuff in his past. Maybe, you know, it's.
I also love
But we can
that.
still learn from him. Yeah.
Oh yes, I also love that some older traditions are coming back into full view, like the Stoics.
Yeah.
The Stoic philosophy is making a bit of a comeback, repackaged by Hollywood, but you know.
Big fan of the philosophy, but the I was not a huge fan of Marcus Aurelius's diary. It's sort of boring, to be honest.
Yeah, it's the philosophy.
They could have
is
really
interesting.
packaged that down into
Yeah, it's quite wordy, but the essence of the philosophy is interesting because it tends to encourage one to park the ego, but also it doesn't shy away from adversity. In fact, it looks positively on adversity as something that builds character and toughness. And again, I will keep on harping on how important that is, especially when we start getting to a certain age. It's very easy to say, well, I want my life to be easier, so I'm going to buy this machine that makes all the work easier for me. And then I don't realize that, or I only realize after the fact that with this machine, I'm now doing a lot of repetitive, tiny micro motions that are terrible for my joints. And so as an older fella, it's probably better for me to pick up that axe instead of the log splitter, right? Even though it's going to take me much longer, et cetera, for my body, it is better. Why we now know that exercise is how you have denser bones. And if you don't do squats, if you skip out on leg day and you get to my age and older, you are more eligible for a fall, which is where 70% of older folks get themselves hurt. So prepping is about thinking of your mind and how does the mind fit in with the body and the practical every day, right? So it all interlinks. It's really important to have them all work together, and the Stoics did acknowledge that too. So that's why I mentioned them.
Well, and just to go back to sort of something we talked about earlier, like saying I can't do that isn't right most of the time. I mean, there's definitely some times when you have to acknowledge your limitations, right?
Sure.
You don't want to like
Absolutely.
I can't jump off a 20-story building. That is not going to go well. Like I can't do that.
Well, you
right?
you
That is
can. You
Only
can
once.
do
under
it.
the right
You
circumstances.
just might not
and
survive it.
Yeah, I can do it once. Yes.
Yes,
But like,
absolutely.
you can do things under the right circumstance. So it might be, I can't do this in this way. I need to do it in that way in order to be successful at it. But that comes with time, experience, and all of the things. But yeah, that's starting to get, more nitpicky and nuanced about it. But yeah,
it's true. But with experience comes the ability to, instead of thinking linearly, right? Okay, well, how do I take a sidestep? Because sometimes the path forward is more difficult. So, okay, take a sidestep, look at your route now from the new point of view you have, and it just might be that now it's easier to go forward. So it's and the old folks had all kinds of analogies like this that they would drop into our laps when we'd be frustrated with a situation, and they were really good ways to pick up a new mindset. So a great way to change your mindset is hang out with older folks. Just hang out with older folks. Go talk to your grandfather, grandmothers. Go talk to your great uncles, great aunts if they're still around, uncles and aunts. Talk to folks who have been there. Read their words. Like we've just talked about. There's so many of them that have been left behind for us.
I mean, hang out with people that you idolize, right?
And on that note, it's a really good way to affect change in your life, Gavin. So I want to highlight that, man. A long time ago, I was a little bit frustrated with my life, and I was just rethinking everything. And so if you ever get to that point in your life, man, don't be afraid. Rethink it all, man. Look at everything. Re-examine it all. And part of that became an examination of my relations with others. And I remember being a bit frustrated that I had some people within my circle who weren't contributing as much to my life as I was contributing to theirs, to put it without getting specific.
That's a very politically correct way of putting things.
Yeah.
Thank you. I try.
Some people are just leeches. I said it, not you. It's okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking, well, how do I change that? And so I remember thinking inside of myself, well, why am I attracted to that? Yeah. Because if I've got people like that around me, I must be attracted to this in some way, right? And so I started thinking about all that, and I started realizing, okay, it's a characteristic of mine, right? I broke it down. I had to break it down. I had to understand it. And, big problems are worthy of breaking down to understand. And so I went through this exercise in my mind. Okay, how is it that they're not contributing, or why is it that they're not contributing, and what is it about me that keeps this loop continuing? So taking self-responsibility is a great way to start the road to mindset, because now you own your mind, or you're working towards owning your mind, and it's a process. And so it took time for me to reflect on this, but I quickly came to the notion that I was happy and enjoyed sometimes losing myself in other people's problems, because one, it helped me feel good when I was able to help them out. But the issue with that is I had surrounded myself with a lot of people that I was helping them out more with their problems than my own.
You're surrounding yourself, with, for lack of a better way of explaining it, like broken people, and you're trying to fix them, and that's not your place, right?
It's maybe counterproductive, because again, here's an old saying from the old folks: God helps those who helps themselves. Okay, maybe you don't like God, maybe you'll use the word creator, or maybe you prefer the universal intelligence, or maybe you'll just like, just people who can't help themselves can't be helped. Okay, whichever form you want to take, it's true. It's true.
Well, so, and to pull from my more preferred religious spectrum, the Norse paganism, Odin is always in search of knowledge, right? And he does these crazy self-sacrifice things in order to do that. So sometimes, like, it's not going to be easy, right? It's going to be difficult, and that's where the perseverance comes in. But and one of the things to gain knowledge, he actually plucks his eye out, right? Which is pretty extreme, but the sort of metaphor there is that he literally had to change his perspective in order to gain knowledge. So, you got to do that, right? To grow and to get that knowledge, you got to go through the uncomfortable thing. You got to change your perspective, and everything will just be better, right? Like, if you go outside and you don't have a raincoat and it starts pouring rain, you're going to get wet. You can be miserable about it, but that's not going to make you dry. Or you can just, oh, well, and laugh about it. And like, I'm an idiot. I better plan better next time and have fun with it. And at least you'll still be just as wet, but you won't be miserable.
Hence why
it's
true.
And there's 204 episodes to help you prevent that problem. I just want to throw a quick thing in here, and I'm not disregarding anything that was said tonight and everything. Like, fantastic. This is not my forte, especially because books are complicated for me unless I can color them, like that other one we talked about. But just a small thing that if this seems like it might be too much or like too complicated for someone to just grasp, or doesn't know where to start, surrounding yourself with people that are willing to challenge you in a good way is a good way to start going down that path.
Absolutely.
Right. Yep. Like, so we, many of you saw, we got a new truck recently. So we went from a little Chevy Malibu to a 2500 HD that looks like a fucking monster truck. Right?
Bit of an upgrade.
Like,
bit of an upgrade.
It's an upgrade.
It's a small one.
Yeah. Right. And we both
Did you pack the Malibu in the back of the truck now, or?
Oh, you
pretty
could.
much. Like, pretty much, yeah. It's huge.
Someone had to ask. Somebody had to ask.
Right, and I'm like, we both want to we both want to drive the truck. So when we were setting up for the wedding, Mel's like, well, I'm going to drive there. I said, okay. And then we had to back it into like a little bit of a tight spot. She's like, well, you can back it up. I'm like, you can't only do the fun stuff. You sometimes have to do the hard stuff.
Yep.
Right? I'm like, it's just you and me. I was like, you're going to have to do this at some point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't want to, but just someone that's going to just, push a little bit, and point you hopefully in at least the direction you want to go towards, whether that's good or bad, that's up for interpretation. But, being around people that are willing to, have that sit down conversation and just be like, where do you want to go? Like, Mel got me a present that I'm going on a shooting competition in a while. Well, I did the course as like the intro and the knowledge of it. It's like, I'm very comfortable behind the firearm, but now I'm doing a competition. I'm like, I'm ecstatic to do it and very nervous, like, right? But it's like, okay, take a breather, everything we talked about tonight. And it's like, just, someone that this is something you want to do. Okay, you go do it once, whether it's miserable. And I was like, this was a horrible idea. Okay, fine. But, putting that barrier there of like, well, everybody's done this for so much longer. Am I going to be good enough? Am I going to be the one that everybody laughs at? All that stuff, like just people willing to just push that barrier into whatever direction you want. Even just starting with that, not going out and buying $100 and standing in an ice bath for 20 minutes, work your way up to that, but just, surrounding yourself with, you guys were just talking about it, those leeches. Sometimes it's like, it's just not worth it, but it's like, someone new or someone you don't hang out with as often is just going to be like, hey, how's this going? You mentioned a few weeks ago that you were going to try something, have you gotten there yet? How's that going? And someone that's going to push you in those directions is even a way to even start training your brain into getting into a better mindset and, going down those paths we were just talking about. Just those little things can make a world of difference compared to, having to sit down, read 20 books while sitting in an ice bath.
Yeah.
The nice thing
definitely
about the nice thing about surrounding yourself with those people is that you start to learn their mindset and their patterns of thinking for success. And that's essentially what I did. It's not like I flushed everybody out of my life in one fell swoop.
No,
I don't think that's a good way to go either. But it was more of a conscious realization that, okay, maybe I'm going to put more time and energy into those relations where I want to go. And so in that respect, you become the change that you want to be just by osmosis, by being around that desired end state.
Or maybe even the person doesn't even realize that, they're coming off that way or doing something. So even having that hard conversation about like, I don't appreciate this or I don't enjoy this or something. Maybe there's just not even acknowledging the fact that they're doing this, right? But like having that conversation, maybe now, that's something you guys can both grow into. And instead of, cutting this person out saying, I don't want to hang out with you, right? Like you guys can grow better and, hopefully,
the world needs to
spread it
have
around.
more tough conversations with each other,
Yeah.
right? Like
Exactly.
That's true.
candor
And
was
not
a
get
thing,
insulted
and it's
when
no longer a
those
thing.
happen, right?
Yeah.
And just doing those little things can, you got to get ready to sit there and have that uncomfortable feeling or conversation that, you may insult someone and someone may say something that you don't appreciate, but you do it. Just do it. That's a good start.
That's all part of the building that mindset, though, right? That's that doing that uncomfortable thing and being comfortable doing the uncomfortable thing in whatever it is, a physical thing, a mental thing, or whatever it is. You got to just it always sounds easier, like just suck it up, right? But it's exactly what you have to do. Start small, though. Start sucking it up over little things, and then those little things will snowball into big things, and then it'll change your life, man. Like it will.
I have to agree. Start small and then work your way up to it. Seek inspiration from those around you that you can surround yourself with who present to you that ideal that you're aiming for. Try to emulate them and the things that you do. Be inspired by them. Don't be afraid to acknowledge that they inspire you. Right? Park that ego. Ego is the most harmful thing to learning and developing yourself in any way. So definitely don't be afraid to park that ego. And if you need ways to park the ego, adversity is one of the best ways to park your ego.
Yeah.
Just seek it out and don't be afraid of it and take it on.
It's our strength.
Truly.
It will park it for you whether you want it to or not. Yeah.
That's right.
Park it
Very
real quick,
character
too.
building. Very character building. Awesome stuff.
Awesome. Well, I think we've killed almost an hour and a half here. Unless you guys have anything else you want to throw in, maybe we'll move into the podcast challenge.
No, that's pretty. I mean, I could go for hours, so we should just stop.
Oh, yeah.
There's a natural pause. Yeah.
Yep. I think a good natural pause like that is sign we've covered
think
lots
so.
of ground.
It's almost like I've hosted a show or two. Look at
Yeah.
Just about, right?
that. Awesome. All right.
Thank you,
So I haven't
Simon.
lost it even after being away for a few weeks. Perfect.
Well done.
So Your podcast challenge for this episode: take a minute, reflect on your mindset and how changing it might help change your everyday. All right. Upcoming events. So the annual Preppers Meet is coming up July the 6th to the 9th, 2023 in Desborough, Ontario. Again, fantastic event. Lots of like-minded people. Lots of really, really good information and knowledge at the annual Preppers Meet. Totally worth making it out if you can. You don't have to go the whole time. You can pop in for a day, skip a day, come back for a day. But yeah, check it out or go for the whole thing. If you just throw in Google there, annual Preppers Meet, you'll get the website, and tickets are on sale now for entry, and the list of talks and stuff I believe is going up too. So if you can get out there, absolutely make it out. It's a great event. Shout outs. So quick shout out to Sue and Leon, two of our latest Patreons. So appreciate you guys signing up and helping keep the lights on here, because without the Patreons, we end up paying out of pocket. So I appreciate you guys throwing a couple bucks in the pot to keep things going here, because we basically even out each year when I have to pay the bills to keep everything on. It pretty much I think about $20 out of pocket now. So I appreciate that. It's awesome. Makes life a lot easier to keep this thing going. So thanks a lot to both you and everybody that jumps on the Patreon bandwagon.
Nice.
Pierre.
Yes, I got a few quick shout outs. So much appreciated for much of the panelists that was at the wedding, and all the help and everything, and everybody that came. And a good buddy of mine that came down from just north of the Butthole, and had a bunch of conversations with everybody and everything, and found out about the podcast, and we were chit-chatting, and he's been binge listening to him and absolutely loves it. So quick shout out to TJ there. Thank you.
Skip the first two or three. Just skip them.
I think he's working his way backwards, and everything. But he's absolutely loving it. And he's like, you guys doing good work. And he's like, it's just so smart. Half the stuff he didn't think about, and, all that stuff. So yeah, quick shout out that spreading the word about
Yes, it was very nice to meet him and talk to him. Yeah.
Yeah,
and I'm wearing a red shirt just for him this evening. Yes.
we'll talk after.
Oh boy. All right. Awesome. Well, with that, I'll bring episode number 205 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or of course your favorite podcast app. Please help us out. Submit a review. It does help other people find us.
We record these shows live on Facebook and on YouTube. If you want an early peek at the show, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast, and click the notifications tab. It gives you an alert when we are going live. You can contact me at batbradcpp@gmail.com.
Hey, Gavin.
I don't have show notes.
Yeah, that's why I queued you to go.
Oh, right. Never mind. Yeah, you can find me on the Instagrams, Urbex GTA, or with Ragnarok Tactical, or the other CPP, Canadian Patriot Podcast.
We almost made it all episode without mentioning you didn't have the show notes. Almost.
Yeah, that's all right. That just makes it more impressive that I did it all with nothing. Because this is a topic I really love, like all of you.
Very true. Hey, Gavin, you were in the right mindset.
I was.
Ooh.
And
well
he
done.
came prepared.
Yeah, with
Hey.
Nice.
sort of.
Nice.
Prepared with the right mindset at the very least.
There you go.
Well done, gentlemen. Well done.
You can find me off the wall customizing on all the socialist medias, Discord for the CPP, but private message me because I don't check it. Or you can find me Monday nights talking about us critiquing the government and why we should prepare for other things on Monday nights on YouTube's for Canadian Prep.
Is that like solar flares?
Yes.
Sure.
Exactly like them.
Can opener shortages.
Hey, there you go.
Oh, there you are. There you are.
Yeah.
Oof, that'd
Right
be
on.
rough.
You can find me, The Frugal Gunny, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, and also on the Canadian Prepper Podcast Discord.
All right. Please check out Rapid Survival at rapidsurvival.com. Get me there on the live chat. You can also email me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. So thanks for joining us this evening. Until next time, be prepared, stay safe.
And keep learning.